All right, welcome in, everyone. It is Tuesday. What that means, well, it means a couple things, Rob Vino. First, it means it's $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. That means myself, Rob Vino, and every other handicapper on the site will have something up for $5. The other thing it means, now that it's conference play, is all the big games go today. That seems to be the new normal in college hoop. We neglect Monday, and every big team plays on Tuesday. So if you missed yesterday's show, or you're tuning into today's show looking for Virginia Louisville, Rob and I already broke that game down. So to get that breakdown, you can go to the Wager Talk YouTube channel, which I believe they clipped it to make a standalone video, or just go to yesterday's show at the beginning and you'll get you'll get our full breakdown on Virginia Louisville. We did that because there's so many big games today. So we wanted to, make sure we touched on the games you wanted to hear about. As fun as it was talking SWAC basketball for most of the day yesterday, Rob Vino gets there right at the end with the team total in Alabama State. Howard won by about 30 for me. We hit the parlay. So we're coming in with all sorts of momentum. But Rob, I look at this slate and there is something that overwhelming pops out to me as it pertains to the bigger games. And that is the bookmakers are very intelligent, and what they are going to make you do seems to be every big game. They are going to make you pay an astronomical tax to bet the home team today. That is, I feel like across the board, go back to yesterday when we talked about Virginia Louisville. Louisville's up to -4, and they might not have a couple of their better players. So I think Conwell might play tonight, but still. And then the other one that comes to mind right off the bat when I saw it open is the game I'll be at tonight in Newark, New Jersey. UConn taking on Seton Hall. Were you a little surprised to see that was only 5.5 at the Rock?
Yeah, it's interesting, Adam. And real quick, just to finish up the housekeeping on Louisville, Virginia, we did talk a little bit about the Louisville injuries yesterday. Just to update guys out there, Mikkel Brown still out for Louisville, but Ryan Conwell will play, probably the reason why the line held where it did. Getting to UConn and Seton Hall here, Adam. It's interesting. I didn't even know this myself until I read it last night that UConn hasn't beaten Seton Hall on the road since 2021, crazy as it may seem. And last year, Seton Hall was down 7 with 45 seconds left in the game. Got it to overtime, won it in overtime. Danny Hurley made a little mention of it. We'll see if UConn doesn't come in with a little extra motivation to do something that they haven't done in 4 seasons, heading into 5 now. So, yeah, I was a little surprised. I mean, Seton Hall, to me, has played very well this year. I've been on them a couple of times. Obviously, it's a defensive-minded team. However, we've talked quite a bit about Bud Clark at the point and extension of the coach, Shaheen Holloway. Just to be repetitive here real quick for those who may be joining us here at Full Court Press now that college basketball season really today, Adam, takes over. We have no more football midweek, nothing to bet on other than college basketball and NBA. So people may be tuning in quick. Shaheen Holloway obviously said that his team has taken to his system. They've been great all season long, and they're going to be a pain in the neck for UConn tonight. I think the problem for Seton Hall in this game is the UConn depth is overwhelming. I think another problem for Seton Hall in this game is Danny Hurley is still not satisfied with his team and their performance, whether it be taking care of the basketball, whether it be random on the defensive end, et cetera, et cetera. So here's a quote. I want to give you this quote real quick here from the head coach. I don't know, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit. I don't know that this is like the 24 team where we were just a destroyer, just a devastating machine. I don't necessarily think they're coming into every game with a seek and destroy mentality. I don't think this team is built like that, but we need these guys to develop more of a killer instinct. Danny Hurley always looking for something, right, with that team to push forward. I think that's the next thing here, to get all facets of the game cleaned up. They certainly have the personnel. I would lean that way tonight. But more than that, Adam, you talked about paying tax on sides. And I think the odds makers have had enough time here to see who's high scoring, who's not high scoring. And we pay tax on over-unders now, too. And if you want to bet this game under, because Seton Hall's a defensive-minded team, it's an extreme under, 131.5. You can get to 67, 65 almost by mistake in this game and cash your ticket. So I may look that direction. I still haven't decided. If you put me on the hot seat to pick a side, I think UConn will come in here with a focused mentality, but Seton Hall is going to be right there with them. Extremely physical game. I just think UConn's depth might wear Seton Hall down a little bit here. They've got more fouls to give in a game that could get a little physical.
Yeah, can we talk about the just the you made a good point, Rob. A lot of people are going to come over. They've been betting football exclusively for months. They're going to stroll in like and you'll see it. You'll see it from people selling picks. You'll see it for all over the place. Overnight, going to become a college basketball expert. It happens every year. This is my annual, hey, I've been here since November 1st vent session, where it's like they're going to come in, act like they're an expert, and then they're going to give you a play like a Seton Hall or like in Oklahoma. And I'm not saying that that's not going to win, but the books are very smart. And what they're doing is they're putting an insane tax on this game being played in Seton Hall. You made a great point. Seton Hall has won this game the last 4 years, and I'll get to why, I think that is in a second. But the reality is, you may have your quote unquote sharper people bet a little bit more on that sort of hype spot. And then you'll have the betting public who's still probably going to look toward UConn, but it's not necessarily wrong. The thing is, the outcome's going to be the outcome, but Seton Hall plus 5.5 is a bad number. Okay. And there's there's a lot of big spots on the card where that's going to be the case today. And then you're going to get someone feeding you Seton Hall plus 5.5. It's this insanely sharp side, which is not, it just isn't. Anyone that knows and anyone that does power rankings knows that is you'd be paying a massive premium for Seton Hall at home at that number. Now, why have they won this game the past 4 years? Well, they've pretty much have given the rest of the country a blueprint on how to beat UConn. I'm surprised more. Maybe it's because other teams are not as equipped to do it, but insane ball pressure and pressing a lot of the game has been a reason that Seton Hall has had success in this matchup year in and year out. Now, they could still do that here. It's just that to me, the problem is you're not even getting 3 full possessions. So you're really asking for Seton Hall to play their game, but then play it at a very high level. Now, Dan Hurley, as good as a preparation coach as you're going to find, as good as sort of getting his team ready. I've said this a million times, Rob. I think he has the best coaching staff in the league. I think a lot of these guys could be head coaches other places if they wanted to be. They choose to stay in the basketball capital of the world, Storrs, Connecticut, because what they've built there is just that worth staying around for. So my whole thing is this, and I guess it's my fear for Seton Hall in this game. If UConn can handle their pressure, which they certainly have the guards to do that, they can Seton Hall score enough to keep up with them? That's my concern. I guess I slightly lean toward the over because I do think that this Seton Hall team, you talk about what did last year's Seton Hall team win 2 Big East games and UConn was one of them. So maybe there is something to the style in which Holloway plays. But man, it just feels like that line came out and Dan Hurley probably called a team meeting to talk about how disrespectful minus 5.5 was.
Probably did. Yeah, I tell you, over the weekend, Adam, when they won 72-60, he was displeased. He said, we probably should have won by 24, but we let off the gas. And to your point about pressure style on the guards, again, I said it earlier, it's one of the things he's harped on all season long. Ball security, ball security, ball security. And when they want to, they're a very good ball handling team. When they get lackadaisical, which may be a small percentage of the reason why Seton Hall has continued to beat them for 4 years, is a little bit of a lack of respect there. UConn strolls in, okay, it's only Seton Hall, and then next thing you know, you're getting beat. But with Braylon Mullins playing the way he is now and the amount of shooters that they have, Demery and Ball and the two centers, it just seems to me that there's too much depth on this UConn team, quality depth for Seton Hall to handle. Probably come out with a nice punch, but can you keep it going for 40 minutes and hang within 5.5? And I'm with you. I kind of lean over here because I think UConn is going to score mid-70s in this game. And if Seton Hall has to chase, they'll foul. So to me, it would probably be a good look at the under here, or excuse me, at the over here. Like I say, it just, that's what struck me, is that the total was that low. I would have, been fine with 136.5 or something like that and said the odds makers are on it. But it looks like they just want to push it down. So maybe we could take advantage.
Yeah, listen, like this Seton Hall team is more capable than their last couple teams have been offensively. I personally think Bud Clark needs to play out of his mind tonight for Seton Hall to have a chance in this game, but he's kind of done that. Like he has the ability to do that. And I think for me, though, I think I'd be much more comfortable backing an over here, knowing that Danny Hurley is not going to let up. Like he is. That guy wants to go out and embarrass Seton Hall tonight. They're not sneaking up on him this year. I know he went there. I'm sure he still has a, place in his heart for the program a little bit, being a Jersey guy, but Seton Hall got that number next to their name yesterday, Rob, the 25, the top 25 ranking. I think you're going to see UConn be very motivated. But for me, I don't like the way they match up with Seton Hall enough to lay the 5.5. So for me, it's the over. Yeah, Steve Duke says it's a big game. Yeah, it's the biggest game of the season for Seton Hall. And a good point to make before we move on to our other feature game that we're going to talk about is Seton Hall, like the Big East is not set up this year for you to have unlimited chances. Like there are not many what I would consider big-time signature wins in the Big East Conference this year. It's a down year for the league, so this is just a massive game for Seton Hall to get that resume-type win. All right, Rob, I want to stay Tuesday. It almost seems that we're almost going to always do a co-favorite. We even had really co-feature. I'm sorry. We even had a tri-feature because we used Virginia Louisville yesterday. So I want to move into the other, what I consider massive of the massive games, the biggest one of the night. And that's in Lawrence, Kansas, where the Iowa State Cyclones are going to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. And this is actually one, Rob, where I don't think the line is, I don't think they're making you pay some sort of crazy tax for Kansas at home. The line was somewhat where I expected it to be. But that being said, like, I do think you're relying on a couple of things to happen for Kansas to stay in this game. Darren Peterson making shots all game long would be the main one for me. And if you don't get that, it's hard to, for me, I think Iowa State is head and shoulders better than this Kansas team. So I'm leaning toward the visitor, but boy, once again, Allen Fieldhouse, the fog is going to be rocking. Do you want to play against the Jayhawks at home here?
I tell you what strikes me, Adam, is the move in this total. And unless the opener that I'm seeing on the screen was wrong to begin with, this is an 8.5-point move on a total between Iowa State and Kansas. And granted, maybe the opener was too low, but the money has just hit this thing and hit it again and hit it again and hit it again. Now, Kansas has kind of taken on a higher scoring persona since Darren Peterson's come back, and Melvin Council Jr. doesn't have to do everything all by himself like he did when Peterson was missing. And they've got quality offensive players here. Couple of things where this Kansas team is concerned, and it would worry me against a team that's built like Iowa State. Here's Bill Self telling you about last game. They lost, by the way, 86-75 to West Virginia. Ross Hodges' team. Again, I'll just go back to November, Adam, when we spoke about Ross Hodge. He came from North Texas with the North Texas style, and here he is at West Virginia scoring 86 against Kansas the other day. Bill Self says, we were very poor. They backed us down. They backed our guards down. They backed us down on the post, and we didn't give much resistance at all. They took advantage of that, and then we didn't obviously score on the other end. They were tougher. We never stopped them the whole night. They still got 39 in the first half. We never stopped them and never made them play poorly. Even El Marco Jackson, a guard for KU, had this to say: got to focus on getting back to playing how we play basketball and being tougher. You don't walk in and play Iowa State and not play tough and get away with it. Iowa State, I think we've mentioned before, aside from all of their offensive capability, it's a really good defensive team on top of that. I'm with you. I think personnel-wise, they're better. I do think Kansas, the more I look into this total and the move, which had me scratching my head this morning, I was like, did some 30-point scorer just drop in to one of these lineups to force this game up? But Kansas really is. When you add those things up, offensive players and softness on defense, you just it breeds higher scoring games. Iowa State's going to probably do what they want to do. Again, you could take the coach's words and apply that and say, well, what he's saying means that they're going to come out with a defensive mentality and a physical mentality right out of the chute. And I wouldn't dispute that. But what I would say is that generally those things, teams trying really hard to be something they're not, doesn't last for 40 minutes. Eventually that wears off. So for me, I think I would be looking Iowa State's way. I think the 16-0 bullseye on their chest will have KU fired up in this game. And for that reason, I won't play it. But because I think Kansas in that crowd, in that frenzied crowd, and with that type of motivation could pull this upset off. The Big 12 is always an upset league, teams beating each other up. So I'll leave it alone. I don't think I can get to the total here at 151.5. They priced it out of my range. So for me, good game to watch, really good game to see if Kansas does respond to what the coach and even El Marco Jackson had to say about their lack of toughness.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was watching the screen and sort of watched. So at MGM and Caesars, this just got faked down to like 2.5, and then instantly bet back up to 3.5, which sort of confirms where I think the respected money is going to go in this game. Colin in the chat says Kansas is not very good. Yeah, I agree with that. I was talking, I have a buddy that went to TCU, so I've kind of followed that TCU program a lot. And, we were talking about that Kansas game before the Kansas game, watch some of that game. And like, you always talk about comp games, comp type teams. The way TCU defends is very similar to Iowa State, in my opinion. Kansas wins that game, but it really, 104-100 in OT. It felt like TCU had them dead to rights. They obviously figured out how to score on TCU if they were able to get to 100 points, even with some extra, the extra 5 minutes in OT. But like Iowa State can do that defensively and then do like a plethora of other things that TCU can't do, right? So it's like not only do you have to deal with Lipsy and the really tight harassing defense from the guards, but Iowa State's got so many other things they do well, to the point where I feel like if you're back in Kansas here, you're just you're hoping for two things. And someone in the chat said it. Peterson's probably got to play the whole game or be productive for most of this game for Kansas to win. I lost the comment, but I agree with you, whoever said that. And then the other thing is, they would just have to ride the like fog wave to a win here, where it's just like, they hit every big shot and the crowd gives them all sorts of momentum. Again, this is what I'm talking about. I feel like a lot of these home teams today who are playing what I consider to be a far superior team are really banking on the the crazy atmosphere is going to get us home angle. Because if you take that out of it, Iowa State's just so much better. And I don't think that there's really anything that that Kansas can do aside from like insane shot making if they get it, that Iowa State doesn't have an answer for. So I was very close to clicking Iowa State when it got to 3. That it was there for about 2 seconds. I make the number Iowa State -3, but I think they're just far better than this Kansas team. And so I lean toward the Cyclones here.
Yeah, two quick things to add here, Adam. The great thing about Iowa State that you don't really find in abundance around the country in the Power Four conferences is their big three are returnees, right? I mean, Lipsy, Mimsilovich, and Joshua Jefferson, all three. I mean, Lipsy got hurt at the end of last year, which cost them obviously in the tournament. Played hurt, I think, in their final game. But those three guys all are as cohesive as it gets as veteran leaders, and you just don't have that a bunch across the country in Power Four conferences. And the last there, Power Five. Last thing I'll say real quick here is since Darren Peterson has returned, which may have me go back and re-examine this total, but since Darren Peterson's come back, the 3 games that he's played, game totals 156 against UCF, 174 in regulation against TCU, 204 full game because of that overtime, but 174, 156, and then 161 against West Virginia is just crazy. That West Virginia game could get to 161. So perhaps there's a lot of merit in this total move. Congratulations to the guys who got there at 143, 144, 145. You're holding a good ticket, but hopefully your closing line value doesn't end up in the garbage can, where sometimes it does. We'll see how this goes. And as you mentioned, the ride the Lawrence wave, we do see that type of stuff in the Big 12 every single year, where teams upset teams that are ranked or sit in the standings above them. We don't care too much about rankings. Earlier you said 25 applies to Seton Hall. Some people care. We really don't care too much about that, but it would probably have Danny Hurley throwing an extra piece of kindling on the fire for sure.
Yeah. He definitely cares.
Yeah,
he absolutely cares. Like don't tell me that Danny. I got to sit behind the UConn bench twice. I sat behind the UConn bench in Albany when they played St. Mary's in the NCAA tournament, and I sat behind the UConn bench a couple of years ago at the XL Center when they played Marquette. That guy is an absolute psychopath, an absolute nut job. I got to hear him like yell and scream the whole game. He is nuts. You can't convince me that that number doesn't matter to him. I know he got off topic there, but he is a complete nut job in like the best way possible. I wish Joey Cheese was in the chat right now. He'd be all over this combo. But real quick, got a promo, the $5 Tuesday. That is the promo on Tuesdays. But every day, Rob and I have our 3-day. I think it's like that. There's a cool name for it. It's like the Fireball something. I don't know. I should probably know the promo before I get on the fire to double the firepower, Rob. I think they're calling it, which is great. Again, should probably know the promo before I come on here and promo it. But the point is, you get Rob and I, all of our college hoop picks for a 3-day stretch, and that is going to be up all year. So you can use it anytime. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, doesn't matter. That is up today as well. And easily the cheapest way to get both of our picks for that duration of time. So check that out on both of our pages. All right, I'm going to kill many birds with one stone here because we got a donation from Garth. Appreciate you. Garth brings it every day, and we very much appreciate him. I know he's winning a lot of these bets. He comes in and donates like every day, but he almost always brings up like a winner. So I think, and we talked about Duquesne last time they played. I think we both got this right. St. Joe's ended up winning that game, and it soared over. It absolutely soared over because it went to overtime. 97-90 was the final. My guy, Sean Lay, who's always commenting on my Twitter, says I don't talk about Dayton enough. So we're going to get both of those things done right here out in the Atlantic 10 tonight for Garth. Dayton, the Flyers are going to hit the road, take on a Duquesne team that's got to be a little bit pissed off, right? They kind of lose a tight game to St. Joe's. The game before that was a game that, they lose at home to VCU, but that's not necessarily a bad loss. VCU is still very good, even with the coaching change. So I'm going to let you start this one off because the question is totals based. So Garth says, thoughts on Duquesne team total over 74.5. They have gone over in the total every home game. Dayton has only allowed 74 plus 4 times this season. And he knows this matchup is historically low scoring. But what do you think, Rob? Duquesne team total over 74.5. They've certainly looked the part offensively at times this year, which I think he's sort of noting here. And that I haven't been to this building yet, but I guess I give A10 home teams a little bit of a bump. So talk to me about this one, Duquesne Dayton.
Yeah, and I think Garth, obviously, I would say you read my mind a little bit here, simply because Duquesne is a team that I've been actively looking at and betting totals wise all season long. And credit to Drew Joyce here, Adam, the head coach, who stepped in last year and played a certain style, and then took the team this year, saw what he had, and we talk an awful lot about, not trying to fit square pegs in round holes. He took the talent that he had and decided we're going to go up tempo here, and they've raised their tempo extensively. They're now 37th fastest in adjusted tempo, and more than that, like I always like to say, on offense, I want to see how quick your possessions are. They're 48th in length of possession, so fast, fast, fast. Anthony Grant on the other side, been at Dayton forever. And I will say, Adam, that I think this kind of is different. Garth mentions that I know these matchups have been historically low scoring. And that's great until the other team changes philosophy and it's a different coach. Obviously, they saw Duquesne last year with Drew Joyce, but it's a change of philosophy, and you don't really know how to prep for it until you get out on the floor against it. And I give that edge to Duquesne right out of the chute here, especially at home, to hit Dayton with some things. And honestly, it's a reason why I played Indiana first half the other day, because I thought with the new head coach, Darian DeVries, and the new style that Nebraska hadn't seen it. And sure enough, first half 39-30, then you go into the locker room, you adjust, and you wind up winning the game. Kind of the same way I feel here. Maybe Anthony Grant can adjust second half, but I think Duquesne's capable of putting up like a 40 spot in the first half before they realize, and that puts you well on your way to over 74.5. So it's the only way I would play it. Duquesne team total over. I certainly wouldn't want to be on under in this case, despite the historical results. I think you have a totally different situation here. And for what it's worth, really quick here, against quicker paced teams, I'll just use the comp game again. We love to do that in my world. Florida State, which gets up and down the way Duquesne does. And the Florida State game was a 97-69. But more important than that, it's just an example of Dayton going with the other team's strength. And that was on Dayton's home floor. Here they're on the road. I think Dayton will probably be forced to go with Duquesne's strength. And if they're ever in catch-up mode here, Adam, that just forces them to play quick, to get points quickly and, try and gain some traction. Last thing I'll say, yesterday we talked a little bit. If we don't hit this two-team parlay, we may go to 3, and we might bring Bayou in here to be the third guy. I'll tell you what, it would have to be third team parlay people, because Garth, as you said, has been on the money all season long. I think he deserves a little shot at the other end of a 3-team parlay. But we did win yesterday, so we don't have to go that route yet, guys. But stay in the bullpen. Be ready.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we owe for absolutely. I totally agree with that. And we do. Bayou hit the leg the other time, so he definitely is earned another shot there. But yeah, we hit the 2-teamer yesterday. We'll stay with a 2-teamer today. I'll be honest, like, I was wrong about Drew Joyce. I was a Drew Joyce hater when he took this job over. I'll just admit it. I didn't think, he takes over for Keith Dambrot, who I was a great coach for a very, very long time. And I did not. Your boy was anti Drew Joyce when he took that job, and I will just admit right here I was wrong. He has got this from where they were when he took the team over. Of course, well, he takes a team over that was probably on the decline, and then suddenly gets to the NCAA tournament because they win the conference tournament. They were not going to get there without winning that conference tournament, but obviously loses some of the players from that team. He's done a really good job so far. And you talked about a change just in philosophy, tempo, all of that. 37th nationally in points per game, 86.3 points per game from this team. They're shooting 49.6% from the field, which is very impressive. That's a top 30 mark nationally. So, my number here, Rob, came out really close. I was 3.5. I believe it maybe up to 4.5 now. So, possibly a little bit of value. I would definitely say, as far as home teams, at least that we've discussed so far, and a lot of the ones I've seen on the slate today, this might be one of the more bargain numbers you're going to get in like the home team spot. Dayton, really nice win for them over the weekend, beating George Washington, a team that a lot of people think is the team to beat in the A10, or at least one of them. But I just don't know how. I wasn't super high on this Dayton team in the non-conference. That loss to Liberty. Not that Liberty's a bad team, but that was a home game for Dayton. That's still a bad loss. So they've come out of the gate hot in conference play, beat Fordham, beat Loyola Chicago, who's been playing better, and then the big win over George Washington. But I'm still not all the way in on Dayton. And so, looking at the 3 wins to start conference play, you come off the big win over George Washington. I don't hate Duquesne on the in this spot plus the 4.5. No real opinion for me on the total, but I wouldn't argue with you guys. So for me, just to give a little bit of a side opinion here, now that it's moved to 4.5, and if it gets, I don't think it's going to get higher than that. I'm looking at some of the sharper books. I think it's probably going to top out at 4.5, but like there's a little value there with Duquesne at home, coming off of the OT road loss. They come back home where they've played better. I'll lean that way. Duquesne plus 4.5 would be my opinion on this one. I just figured out how to auto star the super chat. So that's a, Rob, a big development for me back here on the back end. Someone's like, I did a super chat. First of all, like a week ago, I didn't even know what a super chat was. And now I realized I can auto star it so they come up. So someone's still going to have to explain to me what a super chat is. What I believe it is like whoever like subscribed to the channel, or like maybe they subscribe to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. So what a great promo to subscribe to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. And again, that maybe that's not it, but I figured out how to auto star the super chat, and my guy Truman, who I got to meet, and we went to the North Texas game last weekend, has come through with a starred super chat. And he says, Trig, are you trying to be subliminal by wearing your Grand Canyon gear? Grand Canyon's getting plus 7.5 at New Mexico. Feels like this one will be much closer than that. Truman, yeah, I always kind of am a little bit. I did throw the Grand Canyon sweatshirt on that I got when I was in Phoenix last year. I actually did both of these schools on the same trip. I did them a day apart. I was in Albuquerque on Friday night for what a place. What a place the Pit is, Rob. They deserve all the marks for home court. But Truman, I'm with you. This number's a little bit, I think we're getting a little bit inflated on New Mexico at this point. It opened 8. I haven't bet this yet. I really kind of want that 8. There's a couple of the public books, if you will, the more square shops are at 8.5 on this. So I'm kind of like hoping it goes to 8 or 8.5. If it does, I will likely lock this in for clients. I think this is going to be my parlay leg, but I'm going to like reserve the right to like decide that at the end of the show. But Rob, I kind of think that this is a little bit inflated. I love what Eric Olin is doing at New Mexico, but this is not Richard Pitino. This is not last year's New Mexico team. And Grand Canyon, I wasn't like overly high on coming into the season, but I think they're starting to play better. And to me, like 8 is a lot in what I kind of think is a competitive game. So Grand Canyon, New Mexico, a little Mountain West for you. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, what I see, Adam, is maybe a pushback on this total. It's been bet up, and it's been bet up significantly at this point. Maybe a little bit too much. A little bit too much support for the New Mexico offense at home here. I would figure, anytime New Mexico is in the Pit, and this is just historical, this isn't just this year. Anytime they're in the Pit, the initial thought is they'll score. Here it's going from 139.5 all the way to 144.5. And the only reason why I bring that up as being possibly too high is these two teams, the best asset for both of them is their defenses. Grand Canyon is not a terrific shooting team, especially from the perimeter. Like you can contain them from the outside this year. You got to deal with them a little bit inside the arc and maybe mid range and maybe getting some cheap buckets. But Bryce Drew is not playing an overly quick pace, maybe somewhere right in the middle, moderate pace. New Mexico, a phenomenal defensive team so far this season, 27th in defensive adjusted rating. And by the way, Grand Canyon 29th. So both doing the job here. But New Mexico, since they've hit conference season, here's the point I want to make. Since they've hit conference season in Mountain West, San Jose State scored 65. Boise State scored 62. Wyoming, 58. Colorado State did the best, 70. And that's a phenomenal shooting team, Colorado State. One of the best in the nation as far as effective field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, anywhere on the floor, 2-point, 3-point free throw. Colorado State is all of that. They get to 70. Air Force gets 49. I'm just not sure Grand Canyon is going to put up a bunch. I don't know that New Mexico will put up the numbers that they've put up so far. Again, I'll use somewhat of a comp game here, and I'll use the Boise State game, which for New Mexico was played away from home. But to me, Boise State, moderate pace, pretty good defense. Grand Canyon, moderate pace, really good defense. That Boise State game against New Mexico only got to 115. It was an entire rock fight for 40 minutes. I can see it happen. I just think this number's going the wrong direction where total is concerned. So for me, I probably will get there too with under 144.5 in this game because I don't see each side getting 72 here. You need 73, 72. In fact, the way the game is lined, let's just do the math in our heads real quick. The way this game is lined, you're looking at 76 to 69 to win. I'm not so sure it gets that high. So under doesn't come out of my mouth an awful lot, Adam. So when I'm looking at under, it probably looks really good to me. So I would look that way in that game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like New Mexico, the Pit, you're always going to get. I'm always going to give full marks for the Pit. I got to go to the Boise State game last year. First of all, New Mexico, in terms of like rolling out the red carpet for Trig, they were as good as it gets. I mean, they let me mess around in the tunnel. Like they really like rolled out the red carpet, and their fans are incredible. That the New Mexico fan base, as good as I've ever encountered any place I've been. Awesome people. They had me right on the floor. Someone basically like tackled me during the game, like just out of excitement because they ran Boise out of the building in that game. I love the whole vibe of the Pit, and I really Eric Olin, of course, comes from some UC San Diego. I think he's almost ahead of schedule. I thought that this would be more of a rebuilding year for him because if you look at those early UC San Diego teams, I mean, it took a while for him to get that very unique style in place, and I figured, okay, now you're bringing Albury, and you have some guys coming with you, but like doing it at a higher level in a bigger conference might be a little bit of a rebuild. And they've come out and start, I think, 4-1 in league play. Some of that, maybe they've caught the easier part of their schedule so far. So I think you have to look at the 4-1 start for New Mexico and say, okay, they did catch some of the bottom half of the league. Grand Canyon, though, the reason I like them +8 here, Rob, is I just don't think we've even seen, like, this was never going to be last year's team. No Tyon Grant Foster, no Duke Brennan. It was always going to be a little bit of a different team for Bryce Drew, but Bryce Drew can coach. We know that. The roster is still pretty good just across the board. It's not like he was showing up. Like, I came into the season thinking Grand Canyon would actually surprise folks in this league, thinking they would be one of the better teams in the conference. And the reality, I think, is just it's taken a little bit of time for him to sort of like get this team playing the way he wants this team to play. The big one for me is Dusty Stromer, like, really hasn't been nearly as good as I thought he was going to be. He comes over from Gonzaga, didn't get a ton of playing time for Gonzaga, but I thought that was a really good get for them. I thought he might be the best player on this team or one of the biggest contributors, and he really just hasn't been yet. But 12 points last time out against San Jose State, that's very encouraging. And, they just have a lot of pieces I like, to the point where, these two, this would probably be the easiest road trip for one of the easier road trips in conference for Grand Canyon. I think it took me about 6 hours to get from Phoenix to Albuquerque. So maybe you do get some Grand Canyon fans that want to go check out the pit. The point is, even though the New Mexico team, I give them the full marks at home, it's still not Boise State. It's still not Utah State. It's still not like San Diego State. So part of me thinks, Rob, that maybe they take Grand Canyon just a tad for granted here, and the Lopes are in this game start to finish. So I like the points here. It very well may be my parlay leg. If I get that extra point, the point I want on the number, I may fire it out for clients. Again, I'm going to be stubborn here. It's 7.5 most places. I'd love 8.5. Like where, I wanted a full, I think I made the number 6. So I really wanted that full 2-point edge to make it a client play. But if not, we'll probably use it for the parlay. I think the Lopes are going to be competitive at the pit tonight. Who knows? Maybe even pull off the outright upset win. All right, let's get back to the chat. Truman says he locked it in +8, bought the half point. Yeah, I think you're going to have a winner there. Like I said, it'll be hard for me to go the rest of the day and stay off of that game because I'd have to have serious discipline to do that. We'll see. All right, Shane says I actually clicked on the wrong comment. But you know what? We're gonna play it where it lies, Rob. I clicked on the wrong comment, but who cares? Shane is talking to Bayou in the chat. He says, "Why do you think Minnesota wins tonight?" Now Bayou's going to give his opinion in the chat, but we'll talk about this game because I think it's a very intriguing game. I think Wisconsin deserves a little spot on the show today, Rob, after that massive performance over the weekend, knocking off Michigan. Didn't think it was possible, but they got it done. Do you think this is like the flat turnaround spot for the Badgers here? Having to go play Minnesota, the barn, in a, kind of coming off the Michigan win, and now you get Nico Medved, who's probably as good of preparing for a team as anyone. Wisconsin, Minnesota, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the ultimate, right? The ultimate flat spot. However, the other side of that is that was a turning point for Wisconsin. Watching that game now, again, I watched it because I had a vested interest in the Michigan team total that day, over 93.5. They got to 88. The second half started out like Wisconsin can't shoot any better than they shot to start that second half. Michigan can't shoot any better than they shot to start that second half. Points were flying all over the place. And when push came to shove, Wisconsin D'd up Michigan. Some of the Michigan stuff was wide open. I have to say that. And maybe Wisconsin a little bit fortunate that Michigan missed a few. Great ball movement, open threes, clang. I remember the commentary during that game was the basketball gods are supposed to let that one go in because the ball movement was so great. But it didn't. And Wisconsin continued to make theirs. I think Greg Gard, they have a style now. I think when you watch them play, Adam, it's a good basketball team. The fact that they struggled early stems from the defensive end. Nico Medved, we see, I go in spurts where I think, well, he's turning a corner with this team, and he probably is. But then the reality hits me that, he's just not working with an awful lot up there right now. Fundamentally, you obviously want Wisconsin here. Situationally, you want Minnesota, home team, catching a team off a monster win. It probably scares me off, but I am somewhat interested in the fact that this total started so low and has bumped up to 146.5. Wisconsin really at this point in time, they're not going to revert back to what they used to be. And I don't know that Nico Medved can stop them from being the up-tempo, three-point shooting type team that they are. What could stop Wisconsin is they miss shots, which they didn't do the other day. And we know that's cyclical, right? When you shoot as good as Wisconsin shot, it's coming back at some point in time. Does it come back here tonight and they miss a lot of the stuff they made against Michigan? Possibly. Do they show the 100% maximum effort that they gave on Saturday? Maybe not. I know that this is kind of a rivalry game, but 1.5 is not enough to tempt me towards Minnesota. 146.5. I wouldn't want to play it any higher than that, but very, very slight lean towards over.
Yeah, I lean toward the over as well. Medved has been a guy I've loved for years. Always bumped his Colorado State teams way up just because of him, his ability to prepare for just about any opponent. I think the way that plays out here is his team's able to run some offense and put some points on the board. But like you, Rob, my number came in pretty much right on the nose. Had Wisconsin minus 2.5. So I guess if this gets bet down any further, maybe I show a little bit of value on Wisconsin. But again, I do think the turnaround from a win, the magnitude of the Michigan win, and then having to go on the road is potentially real a little bit. Like Minnesota, I don't think the USC loss was a bad loss. I know they took a bunch of money, but USC, I would still think is probably a better team than Minnesota if they've got all their parts. And it was just a kind of a desperate spot for USC. They win a 1-point game. So I don't really fault them for that loss. And you go back before that, I think Minnesota had 5 straight wins. They have a nice win over Indiana. So again, a lot to like, I think, so far about Minnesota and about the job Medved has done. So yeah, for me, I can't bet Minnesota at that number. I don't think I can bet Wisconsin given the spot and the setup. So I'm with you. I think I got to lean toward the over. If I were to play that game, it would have to be the over. All right, we have a couple. So we've got a couple of donations. So we're going to hit those games, and then we'll get Rob's parlay leg in. We'll lock in the parlay. So we'll go a little quicker through these last couple. But let's get D. Cerna in 1987. I don't know if that's the year you were born. If it is, we're close to the same age. I'm 86. Which means I'll be the big 40 next year, Rob. I'll be 40 in July.
Man.
People still
Party
think I'm
time.
a child. No, I'll be 40 in July. We're going to go to the SEC for D. Cerna. He says Alabama, Mississippi State looks like the dog is taking money. Yeah, it does look that way. I got to say, I kind of disagree a little bit here. Nate Oates has owned Chris Jans in this matchup since the two have gotten to the SEC together. And I got to be honest, I did not see that result coming for Alabama at all over the weekend. So one where I do see the money creeping in. I don't know if I can necessarily play against it, but I also don't think I want Mississippi State here either. They have not been a team I've been super high on this year. Rob, what do you think? Bama, Mississippi State, SEC basketball tonight.
Well, I think everything about this line move, Adam, is because Wrightsell probably doesn't play here. Unlikely to play. So when you're without Latrell Wrightsell Jr., it's a big part of the offense. So you go ahead and you handicap it without him. And even without him, Alabama still is going to have a ton of firepower, right? I mean, it hurts them a little bit, but they're going to play the same way. They're going to play with the firepower. But if you're wondering why Mississippi State is taking money, I would say to you that don't look at this as if it's a play on Mississippi State because of the matchup or anything fundamentally. Look at it as injury chasers betting a line down because Wrightsell Jr. is not playing, and then handicap it from there.
Yeah. Again, I wish I had more to kind of offer on that one. For me, I'm just not going to bet against Alabama. I know Wrightsell's injury probably matters, but it's a deep team. I trust Nate Oates. Outside of Hubbard, I don't really like this Mississippi State team at all. They were a team that came up quite a few times in non-conference play where we had a discussion about the game, and then they just looked awful. So, wow, this has gone further than I thought. Is it 4.5 now?
It is 4.5, Adam. And it's funny. I just kind of laughed when you said that because outside of Josh Hubbard, there is no Mississippi State. And
yeah, I mean, listen, at that point, I don't see, let's put it this way. You cannot take Mississippi State at the current number. That would be a massive mistake, in my opinion. You got an Alabama team we know Nate Oates doesn't F around, for lack of a better, way to describe, the way Nate Oates approaches things. They've lost back-to-back games to Vandy and then maybe a little bit of a hangover over the weekend against what, again, was a Texas team that was extremely desperate and very due to play well, right? Like Texas, they had to have a good one at some point because they had played so poorly the previous couple games. I would lay that small number with Alabama. I don't, that's not my style, Rob, to like lay points after a side has been slammed. But like, to me, like 4.5 is way too big of a move. I don't care. I don't care who's out for Alabama because that's a deep team. They have 10 plus guys that can play, and they have the far better coach, in my opinion. So it has to be Bama or pass for me right there.
And really quick, just that point, Wrightsell Jr. didn't play in that Texas game. And they still got to 88 without him. So that just reinforces the point we're both trying to make about there's enough firepower here to continue on, to march on without him. He makes a difference, but I don't know. Like, it's a Mississippi State defense that's horrendous. I don't know that it means as much as this 3-point move or this move. You're probably getting a bargain price on the total as well. I'll look into Alabama team total here, but we can move on quick.
Yeah, our chat is very intelligent. I see a couple people saying like, they're at Bama -7. I think that's where I was personally, Bama -7. I have to find it in my notes, but I was Bama -6.5, which is why I didn't have much interest on the open. But if you're going to give me like 4 or 4.5, like I just don't think that they're like such a different team with one or two guys out. Like, it's still a really deep team that can play. So lean Bama to me right there. Let's go to this one, and then we'll give you the floor for your parlay. Garth asked, thoughts on Boston College team total over 59.5. Well, my thought on Boston College, I played against them this weekend, but I guess I thought Louisville was going to come out with like their pants on fire and just like hit a trillion threes and run Boston College out of the gym. I think that final being only like a 12-point win for Louisville is more of a reflection of where Louisville is at right now than BC. I've actually been sort of pleasantly surprised that BC can function a little bit, Rob. I didn't think they were going to be a very functional team, but they've looked okay. They played okay against NC State. I thought they did fine against Louisville. That being said, I have no interest backing them on the road again here. So talk to Garth. Do you have any interest in the team total?
It's so low that you're always tempted. I can't do it. Clemson's defensive numbers inside ACC play, even a couple before that, they're just not giving up these numbers. They're just not. I mean, every game they play, it's like very low 60s. BC's a miserable offense. They play at slow tempo. Clemson is going to be able to do what they want to do where tempo's concerned. Unless they were disinterested, Adam, and the look ahead for Clemson is Miami of Florida. If you think Clemson's pointing towards Miami on Saturday, and maybe this is just a lackluster effort, then I would say go ahead and bet over 59.5. If you don't think that Clemson's all that worried about extra game prep for Miami, then they probably lock BC down. 59.5 is a very tough number to bet under with. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it's hard for me to get to the over.
I think you could see your points, Garth. It feels like a spot where maybe Clemson isn't just like trying to, hold a team to 50, wipe a team off the face of the earth. Like they've had a couple games. They've had some big time games lately, SMU, and then the big effort against Notre Dame. I kind of buy into that a little bit, Rob, that they might look ahead and they may let BC hang around a little bit here. They probably still win the game, 15.5-point favorite, but you have money to the over, money to BC. If I was to trust one of those moves more than the other, I think I trust the total move because, again, Boston College, I feel like, can fall apart. And it's another road game. They just had to play at Louisville and really gave a big effort in that game, in the Louisville game. That was a close game for a long period of time. Louisville kind of pulled away at the end. So I think I lean toward the over. That's the way I would look. All right, Rob Vino, I'm going to you. I am going to use Grand Canyon for the parlay leg. I'll take Grand Canyon at whatever the number is. So the floor is yours. Who are you looking at for the parlay?
I'm going to go first game on the board here, Adam. I'm going to play the Villanova team total over 80.5. Fundamental reasoning behind that: Providence cannot defend the three. Villanova is an excellent 3-point shooting team. really quick. I had this circled, ready to go for my leg of the parlay here. Quotes from Kim English. And I know, again, I'll just revert back to the beginning of the year when you had a little bit of inside that said maybe the guys don't play well together.
Did you
Veterans
see
and
that
new guys.
I texted you this morning, Rob? I don't know if you read your text yet.
Oh,
I
haven't
gave
seen
you
it.
like some insight on this game. So
Oh,
you
okay.
can go ahead, but yeah, go ahead.
I'll go back and look, but it's not good on the Providence defensive end, which is why I'm choosing Villanova team total over here. Kim English, we're not doing a good enough job delivering the message to this team about what it takes to defend three-point shooters. It's been a consistent trend this season. We've got to do a better job of teaching and preparing and getting the message across. We're lacking the integrity to compete in this league on a night-to-night basis. They did compete against UConn, right? UConn came out, and maybe UConn disregarded Providence a little bit, but Providence came out and took a huge lead. UConn came back late, I think 11-point deficit in the last 3 minutes, pushed it to overtime. But bottom line here, because we are pressed for time, the Providence team just has not listened to the head coach where defense is concerned, especially beyond the arc. It fits hand in glove with what Villanova likes to do. And again, I'll throw in a comp game, which I went to this morning when I went and played this game. Villanova went to Butler, which is even a better three-point defense than Providence. They're not a good defense by any stretch of the imagination, but they're a better three-point defense. And Villanova walked away scoring 85 points against Butler. So you have to sometimes disregard tempo. I know the argument back at me would be, but Rob, Villanova doesn't go fast. But when you can be efficient, then fast really doesn't matter. And I just see Villanova doing what's right here, making their threes against a Providence team that maybe has tuned out the coach, Adam. I'm not sure. Kim English didn't have a long tenure in Missouri either, but we'll see how this one goes. I like Villanova over 80.5. We have to get to 81 here. Like I say, they got to 85 at Butler. I think they can get to 81 at Providence.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read the text from my buddy that is close to the program that's kind of fed us some Providence info this year. So I asked him this morning, is Jameer Jones in? Of course, Jameer Jones did not play last game for Providence. It very much mattered. He's, if he doesn't play, Nova may even have some more easy points in there. I think he's probably been playing as good as any of the Friars. I think he had, 6 or 7 games in double figures prior to not playing against Xavier. He had a double-double a couple games ago. So, yeah, him being out, he didn't even answer my question. He just responded with this. Team threw in the towel. I was at the Xavier game this weekend. The blown game to UConn is going to result in a spiral. I said, is Jones out? I said, if he's out, I like Nova. Still didn't answer my question. He said, one of the most ill-conceived roster constructions of all time. So this is a guy that's very close to Providence, was at the Xavier game over the weekend, that really knows he has a good pulse on Providence basketball. So that should not make you feel good about Providence. And I'll tell you what, right now, if I can confirm Jones is out, I may have to get involved with the Nova side. Rob, what was your exact bet for the parlay? Because we are going to recap it right now.
It's over. Villanova team total over 80.5.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Jones is out and you're missing that key guy in the front court, they may not even need to make all their threes because they actually might have some easier buckets than they would normally if they were playing at a Providence team at full strength. So I like the Nova side there. Rob is going to go Nova team total over 80.5 for one leg of the parlay. The other leg is going to be Grand Canyon plus 7.5. That's what it is in the market right now. If that gets to 8 or 8.5, you may see it on the client card. And obviously, to get the client card, head on over to WagerTalk.com. Rob and I have a great special up that gets you all of our plays for a 3-day period. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Good luck on your bets today. Remember, it's $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk, and we'll see you guys back here in the morning.